honorable panelists, faculty members, and amicable students. On behalf of Dr. D.Y. Patil Institute of Technology, Pimpri, myself, Smita Pawar, welcome you all for the today's ongoing first-year engineering induction program 2021. We are pleased to have with us Mr. Jayu Katti, Principal Group Engineer Manager in Microsoft at Seattle, USA. Namaste and welcome you, sir. Also, this session will be accompanied by Professor Dr. Ramdas Biradar, Dean First Year Engineering, Professor Dr. Santosh Chobe Sir, Head Computer Department, Professor Abhay Dashrath Sir, Coordinator SIP. Dear attendees, software development is very much important because it is pervasive. Researchers have pointed out saying software has emerged as a key differentiator in many products, from cars to washing machines to thermostat, with a growing Internet of Things connecting them. Software has contributed to strengthening competitive advantages of national software industries in developing the countries on global software market. To enlighten our generation with the new era of software technology, we have arranged today's webinar on developing large-scale software services. Before moving on to session, let me introduce our today's guest of honor, Mr. Jayu Katti. Sir is currently working as Principal Group Engineer Manager in Microsoft at Seattle, USA. Sir has total more than 22 years of experience in Microsoft. Sir was Senior Software Engineer in Hewlett Packard India Software Operation Bangalore in the year 1997. Sir offered his services in Microsoft with the challenging roles like Software Engineer, Senior Development Lead, Principal Development Lead, Principal Software Engineer Manager, and Principal Group Engineer Manager. So we are really very much glad to have you here. And now I request you to take this platform. So over to you, sir.
Okay. Yes, thank you for the great introduction. And again, thank you, D.Y. Patil Institute, and thank you, Biradar sir, Chobe sir, and Dashrath sir for the opportunity. It's definitely a privilege it's to speak to this class of students and all the faculty members. I had prepared a lot of slides, but I think instead of me sharing a lot of data, it would be good if you make this interactive. So let me spend maybe 15 minutes, and then you can stop me there, because the content, not all of the content needs to be covered, and we can switch to Q&A. The other thing is just a brief thing about what I work on at Microsoft. So I am in this organization called Microsoft 365, which is the infrastructure that powers the backend of various services like Outlook and SharePoint, and especially related to search. And I'm just one of in that division. Whenever you go to SharePoint and when you search something, like the technology is powered by my broader organization. So that's my role. So today, and it's a very large scale service. Like the published numbers are several 100 million users, and you know that's a very large number and lots of active users. And it takes a lot of discipline to build that kind of a service that caters to hundreds of millions of users. And I wanted to share some of the very, very, very high level things that are needed to build those kind of services. So I have a few slides, so let me go present those, and we can take it from there. So let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Good?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is the topic today, building large-scale software services, and it's pure. In this talk, I have used terminologies related to Microsoft Azure, but you can build similar services on Amazon AWS or Google Cloud. But because I'm familiar with Microsoft Azure, I have used some of these terminologies. Before I get started, first of all, welcome all the students. it's a fantastic time to join an engineering discipline. There are so many exciting things happening in engineering space. Like pick whichever space you are interested in, like be it electronics and computers, like which is the space I am from, which are like we have artificial intelligence, machine learning, lots of automation, lots of applications, and applications in all other sectors like robotics and self-driving cars. And if you look at mechanical or chemical, there is lots of innovation happening there as well. You can think of aeronautics, transportation, are all the innovations coming from mechanical space. Civil engineering, there is green and sustainable engineering, building roads, etc. It's again great innovations happening to make the world a better place. So it's exciting time to be engineer. You should feel proud of it, and you are on a great journey of this career as like personally as well as your career wise, and you will make this world a better place than what it is today. So I'm very confident of that, and so all the best to you, all of you, and welcome. So so what is a scalable software? So scalable software is like a software that you can build for like tens and hundreds of millions of users or even billions of users. So like services like Facebook and Twitter and Gmail and several Microsoft services like Outlook.com and like Microsoft 365, they are the scalable services. They are fast and responsive. Like you go to their site and everything just works regardless of where you access it from. And they are, if you are building such a service, then it needs to be cost effective. I mean, you cannot put too much resources behind it that it is very expensive for you to operate. So in order to make it scalable, you need to make it cost effective. You need to make it easy to support as well. Like if you have a service that you cannot easily visualize and see and monitor and know what is going on in the service, then it is not, you're not truly building a scalable service. So we'll get into some of the details related to that. And services are constantly changing. Like you see Facebook, if you go there every few months, they have changed something, and because they are able to change and enhance and evolve it. So that's also one of the characteristics of scalable software. And there are many more, but I'm just scratching the surface, as I said in the beginning. Then typically, if you can think of a software service, there are some building blocks. You have software code, which is the code you write in Java or C# or Python. You have a machine or a set of machines that run that code. You have a storage system of some kind that stores your data that is necessary. You have a set of tools to monitor the service so that you know the service is functioning correctly. And you have a set of logs that you can use, that you can generate from your service to know that if there is an issue, you can troubleshoot it. So writing code, this is the area I think many of you are familiar with. Like you can write your code in Java or C# or Python. And let's say for the sake of this talk, we have a service that is managing your phone book, like your phone book with all the contacts. So you can create a contact, you can update a contact, you can delete a contact, and everyone has like several tens or hundreds of contacts. So let's say we are building this service, and then there will be billions of users for this, and then we'll see what the next steps are from here. So you build a class that contains this set of operations. Now, next step is that you need to implement this class, you need to store the data. Now, where would you store the data? The data needs to be stored in the cloud so that you can access it from any device you have. And the data outlives the lifetime of your device. I mean, if you reset your device, your contacts are still available. And that's how you are able to, by storing it in cloud, you are able to recover the contacts. Now, you also need to store the data in the right location. Like there are government laws that require that data is stored in certain place. Like Indian user data should be stored in India. European user data should be stored in Europe. And this is something that you need to build into your software. And there are cloud providers like Microsoft Azure. They help you create your storage. There is an Azure Table Storage and Azure Cosmos DB that can help you store the data appropriately in different regions. And they typically charge you by like the amount of data you store and the number of operations you perform. So you have this address book that you are storing in, let's say, Azure Table Store. Okay, so this is a simple 2-step so far. Now, next thing is that before you can deploy this and make it available to the world, you need to make sure it functions properly. So the testing is a very important part of it. And you cannot rely on manual testing because it will slow you down, because every time you make a code change, you need to test through all the combinations of the cases manually. So that's why you need to automate it. And there are lots of automation frameworks like JUnit, NUnit that help you write test cases, which is, again, you test your code using another piece of code. And you can test lots of edge cases that you are not able to think at the beginning, but you can keep adding more and more test cases to make sure your program works fine. So once you feel good about your code and you feel it is ready to ship to the users, then you need to host it. By hosting means like you take a machine in the cloud and you deploy the code there, and that's where it will start running. And you also need to make sure the software that you deployed is accessible from an endpoint. Like you can access Facebook from facebook.com and Microsoft emails from outlook.office.com. You need an endpoint that is assigned to you. And again, cloud providers like Microsoft Azure, they let you, they rent you machines where you can deploy the code. They'll obviously charge for it. You can use Microsoft Azure Domain Name Service, the DNS service, to register your own domain. It can be like Jayu worldclassdirectory.com or your own dypatildirectory.com as your domain name. So now you have written software, you have tested it, and you have now deployed it. So next thing is that you want to make sure it is available in different regions. So it's not enough that you deployed it in India. Let's say you have users in Europe and East Asia and US. Then you need that software to be running in different regions so that it can be accessed very quickly. And that's why you deploy your software in multiple regions. And for many services like Microsoft services and Facebook and Twitter, they have data centers in different regions where users can access their services from. Okay, so you wrote the code, you tested it, you deployed it to more than one region. So now you need to manage the cost, because everything is you are renting every resource that you are using. So you are paying the rent, and you need to make sure you only pay the rent that you need to pay. So for one example is that you can decide that based on the amount of load your service will have. So let's say you are building a gaming service. So gaming service is typically used in the evenings or on the weekends. And so you need to have more capacity during the evenings and weekends, but not at other times, or maybe very low capacity at other times. But if you are building a business software like an email, then it will be a lot more heavily used during the business hours, like between 9 a.m. to 4 or 5 p.m. And after that, the load will reduce. So then you need more capacity during that initial 9 to 4 time frame, but then you can have lower capacity. So this is how you can manage your cost. And cloud providers like Microsoft Azure, they let you configure the service such that it will increase the machines allocated for your service during certain time of the day or of the week or of the month, and it can reduce the capacity outside of those hours. And this is how you stay in control of your cost. Managing cost is a very important part of building a large-scale service. Okay, so now you have deployed your service. You also want to make sure your service is cost optimal. I'll skip over this slide for now because it gets into some details that are a bit advanced. I can skip this as well. So the other aspect is the user identity. Like you want to make sure that address book of one user is not visible to the address book of is not visible to the other user. So an example is that uh, uh, Professor Biradar, they have their own contacts, and I shouldn't be able to see their contact. And similarly, they shouldn't be able to see my contacts. And the way we do that is by doing the associating the data with the identity. And that identity is something that you need to build into your software, as in you need to allow users to log in. They can log in using their own username and password, or they can log in using their Gmail or Facebook or Twitter account to identify themselves. And then the system will manage the data on behalf of that identity. And this is a very important aspect of the security. When you have lots and lots of users, you should make sure that the data of one user is never visible or shown or exposed to the other users. And otherwise, people will not trust the software that you are writing, and they will not come to your service if there is a trust issue. And we at Microsoft take this very seriously. We build on trust, and many other cloud services that you use, they have trust built into their design. So this is how it will look in the end. Like once you build and put together different moving parts, like you have some sort of domain name lookup that recognizes your service. You have some function that you wrote that manages your contacts, and then you store the information in the databases, and then you use any other services that you need. So this is again very simplified version of this architecture, and there are certain parts I didn't cover, but the architecture looks like this, where you have services that are provided by these cloud providers that you use to build this app end to end. And if you want to get a little bit more complex, if you are hosting in multiple regions, then you can have the same code running in 2 different regions. Sometimes it can be active, passive, active and standby. Like you can have North India and South India as active standby, where if there is a flood or an earthquake in North India, then your South India data center can support your users. Or you can have active across regions, meaning India and Europe and US users can access their own data from their own data centers, from the data centers in those regions. Okay, so that's a very, very quick overview of how you build and deploy the software. But the next important part is how you manage it. So the most important thing for you to know is that you should have some visibility, some dashboards that tell you how your service is doing. And you can have, and these cloud providers, they also give you tools to visualize what's going on. And typically this is like the number of requests coming in, what is the latency of those requests, and you can see these as a chart. And this is how you monitor your software. Now, just monitoring is not enough. You also need to alert when things go wrong. Like if there are lots of requests failing, you need to have alerts in place so that your developers can investigate the issues. Logging, this is needed for troubleshooting. I'll not get into the details of this. I'll share slides and you can read a little bit more on this. So just to summarize, I'll go back to this slide. So this is what the set of things that we talked about today around building scalable software service. And I can take questions from here, or if you want me to go into the details of another area, I can talk about that.
I think we'll take questions only.
Yep.
Yes, Shivam.
Shivam, yes.
Chaitanya Dumar.
Good morning, sir. Sir, if you want to change the service providers, means we are now having Microsoft Azure as a service provider. If you want to change, then how can we?
Yeah. So these days the primitives that are available from different services from different cloud providers are very similar. So for example, you can take a database, let's say MySQL database from Microsoft Azure as well as AWS, the Amazon AWS. So and then they all offer VMs. It's not easy, but you have similar primitives and services from these different cloud providers. It will not be an easy journey. You will spend some time moving from one cloud provider to the other. So in a way, it's also a sticky business. Like if you have something on AWS, let's say, or Azure, you will keep using more of Azure. It will not be easy to switch, but you can do it because they offer very similar primitives.
Rahul.
Hello, sir. I just
Yeah.
want to ask how much the language affect for the software development, as we see that the same thing can be done using C++ or Python. So which affect the more? Which language create the more powerful impact?
Yeah, that's a good question. So programming languages have a couple of parts. So one is that your familiarity, which will affect how quickly you can put together the code. So this is called like the developer productivity is how we refer to it. And there is also the amount of tooling that is available for those programming languages. Like if you have C#, then you have IDE like Visual Studio Code, where you can build the software, you can debug the software, you can integrate with Azure, and you can deploy to Azure directly from IDE. And then there are debugging tools, like if you want to do memory profiling or if you want to do logging, whether all the libraries available or other additional tools are available. So that will all affect the choice of the programming language and technology. And typically your product, let's say like the Microsoft 365, you typically bet on this one product and you work through it. You don't move between them. You decide the choice of, you make the decision on programming language based on a few criteria that I just listed, and you stick with it. You don't change it in the middle of your project. I don't know if I answered your question. Yeah, feel free to ask any follow-up question.
Good morning. Good morning, sir. Sir, actually, I have two questions. The first question is data related. That nowadays we see that many companies, they collect data like Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft. So, sir, what is being done by the data that is being collected, and what it means? What is the use of the data? And the second question is, I would like you to share your experience of how you grabbed a good package in Microsoft.
Yeah, so collecting data is a very sensitive topic. So different companies have different philosophies on this one, on this topic, and it's a bit tricky for me to make any statements around this on behalf of some other companies. But let me tell you what Microsoft does. So the goal of the data that collects, and our privacy policy talks about it in a lot more detail, is to make your experience better. So for example, if there is a data that is being collected about how you utilize your emails, then we'll display that information in let's say Microsoft Viva Insights product, which tells you like how much time you spend on emails versus some other program. Some companies will use it for advertising purposes because they know so much information about you, that you are from Maharashtra and you are from you like to go to a certain restaurant, you have been at certain location, and you have searched for certain things, and they use that to maybe send you a coupon, or they show you an ad and whatnot. So different companies, depending upon what their business model is, will use the data for different purposes. So you can read through the privacy policies of different companies to get into the details of what exactly they do with it. But in this broad forum, I cannot make any statement that is kind of controversial. I can get into trouble. Oh, and then the second part is how do you get a job at Microsoft? I assume that's what you meant. So at Microsoft, our focus is on the core computer science, like you have like the data structures and algorithms and the computational complexity, your operating system knowledge, compilers knowledge. So we focus on the core aspects of computer science. And we also want to know a little bit about you, like how you behave in different situations, like how you are in the team, how you deal with the failure, how do you deal with like this challenging situation where no one has seen before, and how do you make a decision, how do you convince other people of decisions. So we look at these two things, your core computer science competency and your ability to work with people and ability to deal with difficult situations.
Good morning, sir. Sir, am I audible?
Yeah.
Sir, as you talked about coding languages earlier, so my question is that could you just give a brief about which coding language is used for which kind of purpose?
Yeah. So this is something you can find online as well. But for like if you're writing a middle tier service like a cloud service, you typically use a programming language like .NET, C# or Java. If you're writing a web app, you typically use JavaScript and then the frameworks like React.js or Angular. You can also use PHP as the backend in that case, PHP or Python. You can for client writing a mobile app, for example, like on Android, you can use Kotlin or Java. If you're writing it for iOS, you use Swift programming language. If you're writing operating system code or like very low level system component like a database, like a MySQL database, for example, and if you're implementing that, you typically use C or C++ at that layer. The main thing again to look for is what is the goal of the programming language. Like if you are if you're writing a system level component like operating system or database, the performance is the very, very critical aspect, and you want to manage memory and performance very, very closely. Whereas you are writing any higher level component, your goal is productivity, like how quickly your developers can put together whatever is the project need using that programming language. So that's how you think about it.
So as we make program in different type of compiler, but a simple compiler don't work in another operating system. As I have made a simple calculator in Visual Basic, it didn't work in Apple MacBook. So how can we make a program such that it can work in any type of operating system or any type of device? Is there any compiler for that?
Yeah. So the way that works is you pick a language like Java programming language initially came up with this multi-platform runtime. So where they decoupled the two things. One is how you write the program and where it is run. So by creating this intermediate thing called class library, they can take the same class library and run it on Windows, Mac, as well as Linux. And that's that they started this like, I don't know, a couple of decades back. But if you look at the modern versions of Microsoft.NET, which we call .NET Core. So .NET Core now is available on Windows, Linux, and Mac. So you can use those programming languages to code it once and run it on different platforms. Good question.
Muskan.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
You explained that we have to work in slides, that we have to work in all aspect, like languages also, various conditions. So, sir, it how to like work on that? Uh, I didn't got that point.
So basically so the choice of programming language is typically decided by the project owner, like that some senior technical person when you join a team, and you could be that senior most person in the team, and you decide the programming language you want to use for that project, and you use it based on certain criteria, like what is the goal of that project. And if you are writing a middle tier one, you typically choose a .NET or a C# or Java for that. So that's the idea. Maybe I didn't understand your question. If there is any specific you want to highlight, I can maybe take that one.
Actually, I got my answer. So, like, I
Okay.
was supposed to tell that it like English. You told na that to change languages on, like, we have to work on various conditions. So what are the conditions? Like, I want to know about that conditions. Did you got my point? Like, I'm not unable to like express what I wanted to know.
Yeah. As in, like, are you asking like when you should use C# versus C++ versus JavaScript?
Yeah, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what I answered earlier. Maybe it was not clear. So if you are writing a web page or a web application, then you typically use a JavaScript and TypeScript and React.js types of frameworks. If you are writing a very low level component like an operating system or a kernel or a device driver or a database, then you use a low level language called C or C++. If you are writing a middle tier component that kind of manages, that provides a set of services, think of it like Outlook service, the one that Microsoft's product team works on. So that is written in C#. It's a middle tier service that is performing, that is giving certain capabilities to the callers. So that's how you decide, because there are certain tools that work better, certain languages that work better at certain layers.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Sir, which language is used in artificial intelligence? And sir, I want to know just that Microsoft use artificial intelligence.
Yeah. So I'll answer the second part first. Yes, Microsoft uses very heavily artificial intelligence very heavily across many of its products. I mean, my own product also uses it. Bing search engine uses it. Microsoft 365, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. If you go to PowerPoint, it suggests you the design insights. So that is an example of artificial intelligence. If you go to Outlook and then like you go to like focus and other, so that classification is based on machine learned algorithms. So yeah, we use artificial intelligence, machine learning everywhere in various products. So you can think of artificial intelligence as a set of libraries. And those libraries are available in all programming languages. It's available in Java and C# and even in JavaScript, in C. If you start playing around with artificial intelligence and data set, there are lots of Python libraries available. So the more beginner environment will have access to Python libraries. So but short answer to your question is those libraries are available in many programming languages.
Swara.
Sir, I have to. Sir,
Yes, go ahead.
I have to ask you what are the skills I have to learn for artificial intelligence and data science branch?
Yeah. So don't think of artificial intelligence in isolation is what I would say. Like, so artificial intelligence is also not a thing you come up with in like your own kind of world. Like you work with your product owners to figure out how you are incorporating product like artificial intelligence into product. So one aspect of that is like gathering the data around like which data you want to apply the artificial intelligence on, and how that makes the life of user better, how it helps you optimize the product. So the way you can prepare for it is in a few ways. So one is that you want to know what are all the areas where artificial intelligence have been applied so far, and you will find many examples. And then there are a couple of sites that, like if you go to TensorFlow, which is Google's artificial intelligence like machine learning platform, you can start tensorflow.org, and they have a lot of libraries. You can go to this website called datasciencecentral.com or something like that, where they have given lots of small examples on various data sets that show you how you can apply artificial intelligence on those data sets. So what I would suggest is start small and think of applications rather than the technology, because the application is what will help you appreciate the data science and artificial intelligence better. So I can share some links after this meeting with Biradar sir, and then you can he can share it with you.
Good morning, sir. Myself,
Morning.
I'm glad to be a part of this session. I have two questions. One is, how can I improve logical thinking in programming language? And second one, as I want to become a game developer, so which programming language should I prefer?
Yeah, very specialized, man. I'm glad you are passionate about this space. Um, yeah, so again, I'm not a game developer myself, and what I know is that game development is available across every like screen. For example, like you can do game development for iOS, Android, and Windows and Xbox and Sony PlayStation, etc. So first pick what platform you want to target, and what makes sense and what kind of inputs you need for that. Like, is it like just a touch screen input? Is it a separate controller? Or and what's the frame rate you want? Because the more frame rate you need, more computation power you need, etc. So that's one part. The other is like each of these game development platform, they support some common game engines. I think Unreal, and you probably know more than me here. So these game engines, they decide how or they tell you how you can utilize those engines to render a scene, etc. The first part of your question, which is the how to improve logical thinking, I would say don't worry too much. You will learn more as you do. Like get into the habit of doing, and that as part of doing you will learn more. Nobody is born to be illogical, so don't worry about it. You will just do work hard, make mistakes, learn from them, and you'll be fine.
Hello, sir.
Hello, Pranav, go ahead.
Sir, I have two questions. Sir, my first of it is, sir, how challenging it will be for a startup to design a product somewhat similar to the product by tech giants like Microsoft, Google, etc., and used by various people around globe. Like you gave an example of phone book. So my question is related to that first. And second one is like, for a first year student, in what topic should we work hard and have a mastery to give a productive outcome in later?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Both are excellent questions. So let me take the first one. So what I would suggest is that think of a unsolved problem. Don't try to get into direct competition with any particular product. Like, don't try to build a new Facebook or a new Twitter or new Microsoft 365. Think of a problem that society is having, people around you are having, or you yourself are having, and then start from there, and then use that knowledge to build a software and build the right experience to solve that problem. And if people have that problem and they like your solution, then your product will see the adoption. And if there are lots of people who have that problem, then you will have lots of users because they like your solution. So think from the problem rather than competing against any particular tech directly. And also solve lots of problems. I mean, don't think of like building one product like Facebook and then expecting a billion users. Maybe like build 20 different products, and maybe one or two of these will have more users than the other. So go solve lots of problems, and that will help you learn and understand which problems are resonating better with customers, and hence you are getting more users, and that's how you'll grow your product. I'm actually not able to recall your second question. Can you state it again?
So for first year student, what he should do?
Yeah, so first year student, I would say like this is one thing that is easy to say but hard to do. One is that work hard. I mean, life is hard, life is not easy, and you just need to work hard. And second thing is reduce the distraction. Like, we all have way too much distraction, everything from sports to TV to entertainment to games, and just even basics of the daily needs like eating and cooking and washing dishes, etc. So figure out what is the most important set of things that you want to focus on, and just go from there. Go focus on there. You will not have enough time in your day and week to solve to attend to everything that is going on around you. So focus, meditate. If you are a religious person, pray like for 30 minutes every day, 20 minutes, how much ever you can find time. So calm your mind. It will help you focus.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Krutika.
Yes. Good evening, sir. As we are attending the meeting from Seattle. Well, my question is simple. That how do you manage the data? Because like these huge companies have really big data. In several decades, there will be use a lot of data. So, is there any solution has already done, or they are improving it?
Yeah, that's a good question, and there is no easy answer. I mean, you are balancing your data store across 2 or 3 dimensions. So one is that it needs to store the data. It needs to store it reliably. Like if it is sitting in a data center and there is a flood there and the data center is wiped out, you need to be able to recover it from another data center. So, and the second is it needs to be cost effective. If it is expensive to manage the data, then you will not survive, and your business will not survive. And third thing is it needs to be like fast and extensible, meaning because you always are trying to do different things with the data. So you need to be able to do those things and evolve your service. So we underlying, so we have, this is all Microsoft has built this technology over the last I don't know, couple of decades, and it is constantly evolving. And we So at a very high level, if I were to describe this, we store the data on 3 machines at a time. They are in different regions, and there is a replication going on for the data to save it correctly. And that is that adheres to all the laws and regulations of the various governments that are related to the country where the data is sitting. So yeah, it is hard. I mean, I can maybe give a separate talk on this just for an hour.
Good morning, sir. My question is that, so on your point of view, as thinking about the future generation, what the qualities and the skills should a software engineer should have?
Yeah, so I can answer this in a couple of ways. So we can talk about it in a couple of ways, like what you will do as an employee in a big tech company as a software engineer. So I can talk about that. When I had a slide, I skipped over it. And that's one part of it. The second part is that what are the general skill set of any software engineer anywhere, and there should be some intersection for it. So one is that you should know your technology, as in you should know the programming languages, you should know how to debug, you need to write good quality code, you need to know the design patterns, you need to know the data structure, you need to know what a test-driven development methodology is. So all of those things are your core things about what you bring to a company. But then what is your day-to-day role once you are familiar with this? So A is that you need to understand customer problem. Like what is the business problem that you are trying to, that you are helping to solve? So that's your first part of working on any project. Then you need to do a good design that addresses those things in a cost-effective way and efficient way. And then you implement, you write the test, you write the code, you write the test, you add loggings, you add monitors, and things like that. So I guess you may be looking for the mostly the first part of what I was trying to answer, is that you need to know the technologies related to software. That includes the programming languages, debugging, testing framework, the design patterns.
So just before going next question, I like to ask Biradar sir if he can just express his few views regarding the session.
Thanks, ma'am, for giving me an opportunity. And I'm very happy to be here with Jayu Katti. For students' information, just in his introduction, ma'am has missed something. Probably the most sincere, the best student I have ever seen in my life. And I was very lucky to be with him for 11th and 12th. Same division, same batch. And again, during the session also, students, how he is answering, how he has prepared. So many times what happens, if we tell something to some students, they tell we need the time. And 2 days back only, suddenly I asked him to prepare for the session, and he has prepared nicely. And he is able to answer. I know he can answer all the questions, your questions. And at the same time, so for you, so you can interact with a person who is almost perfect. Even though in the study, in his work, in the study, for your information, he was having a perfect 100 group, 100, 100, 100, physics, chemistry, mathematics. And so it was only because of his sincere efforts and very sincere, hardworking. At the same time, the most important thing is probably the most punctual. I have never seen him missing a single lecture in 2 years, as per my knowledge. At the same time, coming in the class well in time. So again, I'm giving the hint to the students. He is not only a person from Microsoft industry. He is one of the best student, best guy on academics also. If you wish, you can ask the questions. So thanks, Jayu, for being with us. And most important that in the beginning of our engineering students of their first year itself. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Biradar sir. And again, like it's amazing that Biradar sir has done so much for students and the kind of sessions he sets up for all of you. I'm really impressed. I mean, I wish I had a professor like him when I was in my engineering, like industry, people from industry and this kind of Q&A interactive session. So I think you are doing an awesome job here, Biradar sir. So yeah, and I'm really happy for you.
Thanks.
And for students.
So
what about front-end? How front-end works?
Yeah, so front end has many different parts. So you can think of mobile app as a front end. You can think of a Windows app as a front end. You can think of a web page as a front end. So depending upon what front end you are building, your technology and development method will be different. So if you are building an Android app, then you are using Java or Kotlin as the programming language, and they have their own development environment. Like Android Studio for development. If you are building a web app, typically people use React JS and JavaScript for development. And if you are building a Windows app, then you can use C# and Windows UI libraries for development. For iOS, there is a programming language called Swift and Swift UI library. So for building iOS apps.
Miss Prana, Usha. Rahul.
Good morning, sir.
Hello.
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 Yes, Usha. Yes, Usha.
Yes, I can hear you.
Good morning, sir. I just wanted to ask that what does ENTC play a role in running the huge software industries, or what is the scope for ENTC?
Sorry, ENTC is electronics and telecommunication?
Yes, sir.
Okay. See, basically every engineering discipline has some role to play in overall technology space. So ENTC, for example, you can think of 5G development that is happening right now, or mobile radio and communication, or new generation of fiber optic technologies. Like all of these innovations are coming from ENTC. You can think of mobile phone antennas like 5G antennas, Wi-Fi antennas, Wi-Fi 6 antennas, microprocessors. They are coming from electronics and telecommunication. The new generation of processors, like there is a ARM processor, or there is all the new processors, the custom processors that are being built through the knowledge of electronics and microprocessors. So that are again coming from ENTC area. So again, future is unlimited. So every foundational aspect of the technology is built on ENTC. And there is again lots of growth that is still coming from people like you. Yeah, next, Rahul.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Sir, I wanted to ask, like, you must have seen various programmers from various countries. So I want to know, where do Indian programmers stand in that hierarchy?
So, I mean, Indians are doing very well in United States and in other countries. But the way you can think of it is like every country has talent, and every country has very smart people. So just like, I mean, if you just scope down the problem to like country of India, like you don't ask the question whether South Indians are better programmer than North Indians, because that's not how you should think. You should assume that every part of the world has talent and good programmers, good designers, good managers, good leaders. And we just need to find them, recruit them, use them, and empower them to build great products. So that's how we see it at Microsoft. It's not whether the developers from one country are better than the other, or one state or one city are better than the other. Make sense?
Yes, Shivam Mishra.
Yes, ma'am. Hello, good morning, sir.
Morning.
Sir, as you just explained, how does a large-scale software services works? I want to ask what else specification we have to make in this prescribed procedure that you explained to give consumer or customers to edit, develop, or customize the product and can use it back with the main servers.
So yeah, so it depends